Hi, everybody, and welcome to week number 3. The big overarching theme of week 3, as you know, is motivation and that idea and how that links up to organizational behavior. Just a reminder that the learning outcomes for week 3 around motivation are to understand the role of motivation determining employee performance, apply motivational theories to organizational behavior, and describe individual team and organizational based incentives that can be used to motivate the workforce. And as you know, there were 4 readings for this week that were required. So, for example, chapter 5 talked a lot about job performance and general motivation. As you know from reading through it, talked about factors, ability, environment, motivation, really dove into those and talked a lot about a number of motivational theories as well, which I'll get back to when we talk about the DQ. Of course, chapter 6 talked a lot about job characteristics models, goals, and what those look like. Empowerment of employees was another big theme within that, and the piece on goals really resonated with me. I enjoyed that within the chapter. Of course, there was an article around corruption in organizations, ethical climate, and individual motives. One of the big themes from that was that corruption does not happen, though it's an individual act. Oftentimes, the best mitigating factor for it is the organizational culture. And finally, there was an article, of course, on generational differences in workplace motivation. And one of the key findings from that was that regardless of the generation, there were not large discrepancies or statistically significant differences in terms of how motivation worked between generations, as you know from reading that article. And as always, when you look in the course news and bulletins, you'll see some notes that I took and some highlights that I took. I'm sure you took your own as well, but I do hope that those help you and you can refer to them, and they're in the course news and bulletins section of our site right now. So, again, the 2 DQs for this week. The first one: which motivational theory have you found to be most useful in explaining how people behave in your organization and why? So I want you to do 2 things at once here. I want you to choose perhaps an organizational theory, or excuse me, motivational theory from very likely chapter 5. That's where they really talked about those at great length. And then talk about your own organization and say, well, here's what I saw from chapter 5. Here's one that really resonated with me. And here's how I see it playing out in my particular organization. So you're going to take your own experience. And again, I used the term meld last week, but let's talk about that again and meld that with something you learned from the readings. So just some examples of different theories that were floated in chapters 5. They talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the ERG theory, Herzberg's 2-factor theory, McClelland's acquiring needs theory, and then later on they talked about equity theory, expectancy theory, reinforcement theory. There's all kinds of theories described within chapter 5, and I'm not asking you to hit on all of them. I'm asking you to choose one that really resonated with you and talk about how you see it impacting your organization. So that covers us on the first DQ for week 3. The second one, drawing on the Gorsuch et al. From 2018 article, and of course that was the one that was titled "Corruption in Organizations: Ethical Climate and Individual Motives," that I referred to just briefly a couple minutes ago. Discuss how ethical climates of organization impacts the potential for corruption. So again, thinking about what was said in the article about how the culture of organizations can be a mitigating factor against individual corruption. Think about your own workplace environments. Again, bring that into the conversation, what you've noticed from being part of an organization and how ethical climates are built. Refer to the article and think that through and say, okay, how do I feel the ethical climate of organizations impacts the possibility of corruption? So that's what we have for this week. As always, let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to participating in the DQs with you throughout the week. All the best, everybody.